Chapter 3, Statement 11. So people claim that the rules of the Vinaya Pratimoksha were only bestowed on those who possess the support for the rules, namely monks and novices. Here it says just monks and novices because of the situation in Tibet. At that time, there is only novice monks and nuns and fully ordained monks. No significant numbers at all of fully ordained nuns. Although in recent research, there is some evidence that maybe there was a few women who somehow got full ordination in Tibet, but it is all very unclear. Yeah, so the reason why here it says monks and novices is because there is the tradition of novice monks, tradition of novice nuns, and tradition of fully ordained monks. But the tradition of fully ordained nuns, general understanding is that it was not, and it was never established in Tibet. And the reason is that, or at least part of the reason is that they were not able to get enough qualified Indian, basically, nuns, because mostly Dharma was coming from India, to travel to Tibet. It's such a dangerous journey. And so the transmission never started there. Whereas to make someone a novice nun, a monk can do that. But to make someone a fully ordained nun, nuns have to do that. So that's kind of a footnote for this here. So anyway, the main statement: the king of the three realms has bestowed the rules on beings in general. So you can see how, right, the first position or the counter position, people say that these rules, specifically these monastic rules, 253, and they were only given to those who have the basis of keeping them. So the basis for keeping them would be properly being ordained as a monk. So you can extend this to, properly being ordained as a nun, properly being ordained as a novice monk, properly being ordained as a novice nun. Then you have the basis. And these rules were meant for you, and only you. Here, Gilbert Rinpoche's statement is, the king of the three realms, meaning the Buddha, has bestowed these rules on beings in general. Yeah. So this is, continuing from the same theme, right? The overarching theme is like our attitude towards the rules of training should not be based on the idea. If I were to summarize this, I would say it should not be based on the idea of someone arbitrarily. Now, arbitrarily means, does not exclude with a good intention. Arbitrarily, I mean someone making up rules for whatever reason, and then convincing people to follow the rules. Right? That's one way of relating to these vows, precepts, and rules, that ultimately someone made them up, and we either choose to follow or we don't follow. Buddha's view, Buddha's way of talking about these precepts and vows is, no, nobody made this up. Yeah, nobody made this up. I have seen, I as in Buddha, I have seen the way in which suffering arises and happiness arises. I'm just telling you, you know, that it will be smart, it will be skillful if you do these things and you don't do these things. Because when you do these things, then these results are going to come. When you do these things, then these results are going to come. So the idea that, oh, those 253, they were only given to monks. And if I'm not a monk, then it doesn't apply to me. Here, Kyoba is saying, that don't make any sense. I mean, frankly, on some level, I can also see how we want to say, but it makes sense, like not wearing, so like it means it. For example, the robes of monks and nuns. Buddha says they should be made from colors that are reflect the colors of the soil of the earth. Right? Then you say, well, I did not take that vow, so what is wrong with wearing, flower designs? Well, yeah, on one level, you might say, well, there's nothing wrong, wearing flower designs, But Kyopa Rinpoche wants us to understand. But why did the Buddha then say, oh, hey, monks, don't wear all those different designs. Make it plain. And not only just plain, but plain and the color of the earth. As I explained last time, there's a reason there. He's not like putting more burden on the monks and nuns. He's in fact protecting them from the kind of suffering that you and I have. Just because we think, well, I never took that. We think it's more free, right? I never took that vow. So I will just, I can wear whatever I want to wear. Then we think that is freedom. And in a way, yes, that is freedom. But the Buddha will say, and Kyopa Rinpoche will say, that is freedom to suffer. Do you really want that kind of freedom? Freedom to suffer? Yeah. So here, the commentary starts with the question. If misdeed by rule and misdeed by nature are the same, why did the Buddha bestow the rules only on the Shravaka retinue, but not on other beings? So this questioner says, if you say misdeed by nature and misdeed by rule is one and the same, have the same principle, as we saw in the previous statement, then why is it that the Buddha gave these rules only on the Shravaka retinue, meaning like the monks, the nuns, and not on others? The answer says this is not the case. Because for the teacher, there is no near and far, meaning he has no he doesn't work with the concept of those he's close to and those he's distant from. He doesn't work on he doesn't run his life, so to say, based on those he like and those he doesn't really care much about. So there's no far and near for the teacher. All the collections of rules are in fact rules bestowed on beings in general. The teacher did not bestow the basic training on retinues such as the Shravaka monks and novices that benefited only them. He benefited all sentient beings through the activities of cultivating the resolve at the beginning, the resolve to become Buddha, gathering the accumulations in the middle, and becoming a Buddha at the end, and turning the Dharma wheel of Dharma until he entered Nirvana. Thus, And so on it has been taught. He even communicated with each individual being, illuminating every realm up to Akanishta with light emanating from his face, and thereby benefiting many beings in many ways. The benefits of guarding the rules and the disadvantages of transgressing them are undifferentiated for all beings, high and low. So a couple of stories are referred to here. Then a quote: "Do not do any evil at all, carry out virtue perfectly, and tame your mind. This is the teaching by which all Buddhas have summarized the Vinaya. Since the root of the Vinaya is nothing but practicing virtue and abandoning evil, non-virtue, all rules are simply bestowed on beings in general." So it's making that same point that I think I've already made, that don't look at these rules as, just only relevant to those who have taken them. For those of us who have not taken them, we still need to see kind of like, oh, well, that's the reason why for that rule. And that's how it might still apply to me. Or that's why that rule, and that's why it applies to me. So when we change the way we think like this, then we begin to relate to the vows and the precepts in a very different way. Seeing them as the analogy I use is, it's like security, It's like having an alarm system, having a security, to secure your home. Now, of course, I think it's also true, like be careful, don't make this security into a prison, right? Your home is so secured that it feels like you're living in a prison. So don't make these vows, these precepts into like a prison. Understand that these are methods to be free from suffering, methods to achieve happiness. In the notes, according to the Dorshema, people think that the Buddha issued rules, that he issued those rules, enumerating the different grades of transgression, such as, if a monk does this, it is a defeat. He has been defeated. He cannot be monk anymore. And then if he does this, it's a temporary expulsion, then a transgression, then a grave fault, something one must confess, a mere fault. So indeed, in the Vinaya rules for monks, 253, they're divided into these categories. But the conclusion for that should not be that, therefore, people who are not ordained cannot commit a defeat or a transgression. And thus, these rules apply only to monks and nuns. This view is what Kyoba Rinpoche is trying to clarify. It says, but if everything that is prohibited because it is non-virtuous by nature, it follows that the distinction between the two groups of beings is a false one, meaning those who have taken and those who have not taken. Those who have agreed to take these precepts, these vows, and those who have not agreed. Because if by nature it is non-virtuous, whether you have taken the vows or not, it remains non-virtuous. If by design it is said you cannot do, then if you did not make the promise of not doing it, then, you can say, well, that doesn't apply to me. Yeah. Such as like the teachings of non-hoarding, it says. So some of these stories, let's look at these stories. or at the bottom of 259, since the fundamental nature is the concern of all. So the Buddha taught the fundamental nature, and that fundamental nature applies to all, right? So since this issue of the fundamental nature is concerns all of us, not only of the specific group of ordained ones, all teachings, which are only the teaching to eliminate faults and accomplish qualities, and this is taught in accordance with the fundamental nature as realized by Buddhas. Yeah? Since this is the case, then it concerns all beings. The examples that the commentaries provide all demonstrate that to accomplish virtue and abandon non-virtue has the same results for all beings, high and low. In an earlier life, when the Buddha was born in hell, he was among the lowest beings. There he developed compassion for the first time and relieved another person of the ordeal of dragging a cart of fire, which became the basis for cultivating bodhicitta. This example demonstrates that compassion and bodhicitta are teachings for all beings, even those born in hell, as the Buddha to be was at that time, and that its benefit will arise even for the lowest beings who cultivates it. Secondly, there's the story of Kumara Kusha. There was once a householder who refused to give alms to a particular Buddha, who was associated with 18 unpleasant omens and had the face of a lion. So there was a particular Buddha who somehow, has these physical features and things that, make people don't like. So this householder refused to give him any offerings. Angrily, this householder said to the particular Buddha, "You, lion face, do not come into my house." In the later life, the householder was born as Prince Kusha, who had a very strong body and a face like a lion, and was associated with 18 unpleasant omens. The Rinjangma remarks that although the householder Kusha was a 10th stage bodhisattva, he was unable to avoid the negative consequences of the formal deed. So even when he was Prince Kusha and a 10th ground bodhisattva, the karma of having, yelled at a particular Buddha nonetheless ripened. Now, here I want to say, it is not saying that, once karma has been created, it cannot be purified. And in this case, it's just that karma wasn't purified. And so if it wasn't purified, even if you achieve 10th ground bodhisattva, then its results will manifest. Yeah? This is not saying that karma once created, negative karma once created, cannot be purified. Likewise, it is also not saying positive karma once created cannot be destroyed. Equally, they can be changed, they can be destroyed. But if you don't do anything to change them, then they're going to ripen regardless. Yeah. The third story is that of Kumara Mukapangu. He was born as a prince and was named Waterborn. But since he could remember that he had been born in hell for 60,000 years because he had formerly maintained a kingdom with false laws, he thought, "I was born in hell because I have served as a king. Since I'm born again here in the house of the king, to avoid inheriting the kingdom, I will pretend to be an idiot and crawl on the ground." So he became known as young idiot crawler. The Rinjangma and Dorshema explain the story in great detail. But it is unclear how or which part of it connects with the present teaching, except perhaps to show that even a king, like the 10th stage bodhisattva alone, above, will suffer the consequences of his deeds. In the end, however, the young prince was allowed to take ordination and become the Tirthaka, that means non-Buddhist teacher, Mukapangu. Along with his retinue of 500, he experienced the obstacles because of his hoarding. The commentators mention this story as the fifth example. The fourth example is that of a monk Swagata, who out of ignorance had taken food or drink mixed with alcohol. Heavily intoxicated, he had gotten into trouble that nearly killed him. On that occasion, the Buddha proclaimed the rule concerning intoxicants. And just giving an example of how the rule. So this is out of ignorance he has taken alcohol. So from the perspective of, how in this case, he wasn't intentionally taking alcohol, right? So in that case, you can say, there is no non-virtue of intentionally taking alcohol to become mentally impaired and then to create non-virtue. But nonetheless, the fact that he had ignorantly taken food that is mixed with alcohol, there indicates that there's a lapse of mindfulness. If you were paying attention, you would not accidentally eat food that is mixed with alcohol in that sense. So it's saying still ignorance is not a virtue. You cannot say, well, I didn't know that that was a rule. In that sense, ignorance is even more dangerous than anger and attachment. Anger and attachment, you can see immediately, they are non-virtues. Ignorance is hidden. Any questions or comments about this statement? Statement 11. If not, next statement, 3:12. People claim that evil and transgression, being that by nature and not, being that by nature or not, are different. This is further elaboration. Same point, I think we already got it. Evil and transgression are not different, but the same. These are related to vocabulary that one finds in the Vinaya discussion. Just to emphasize how serious, how heavy a particular type of action is compared to a particular type, another type of action. Here, Kyopa Rinpoche is not saying, that there is varying degrees of heaviness of your virtue or non-virtue. He's not saying that. What he is saying is that no matter how heavy or how light, this is not based on heaviness and lightness of actions is not based on the Buddha arbitrarily saying, oh, this is heavy, this is light. For you, this is light. For you, this is heavy. Like saying to someone, for you, engaging in anger, not so bad. For you, very bad. It's saying, no, it's not based on that. Whether it's heavy or light is based on natural principles. So, yes, there are terms like, oh, this is an evil and this is a transgression, but they are based on same principle. Evil is papa. We usually call in Sanskrit papa. And then the opposite of evil is punya, merit. So evil, dikpa, non-virtues. So Sobish explains, some people hold that evil, dikpa, here defined as that which is non-virtue by its fundamental nature, is different from what is called transgression, which is non-virtue only because it was ruled so by the Buddha. So this points to the fundamental misunderstanding of those people who study these Vinaya texts when they make the conclusion a transgression is not evil by nature, but evil because the Buddha said so. Kyopa Rinpoche is like, no, that's not how it works. Because everything the Buddha says is based on the way things are. So it says, accordingly, a transgression is always associated or only associated with a person who has accepted a prohibition by taking a vow. Which is, Kyopa rejects that. Explained in the previous point, the rules, which are only about eliminating faults and accomplishing qualities, are meant for all sentient beings. And from that, it follows that the results of committing non-virtuous acts are the same for ordained and unordained people. It's the same. 13, statement 13. This is a little different. This is actually, I think, not so repetitive, but it's on the same principle. People claim that since rules depend on conditions, or on, you can say, the situation, when that which is now prohibited by rule was still permitted, there was no fault. In other words, this view is saying, since these rules depend on the conditions, the situation, then in some situation it's okay. In this situation, it's not okay. They want to say that. Gilbert Rinpoche says, no. How can okay and not okay change? In all situations, what the Buddha says is not okay, it's not okay. In all situations, what the Buddha has said is okay, it is okay. Okay. Here, right? You should not hear this and think it's some dogmatic, like God-based, because Buddha says so. You have to understand that the main point here is, why did the Buddha say so? He said so because two things. One, he can see very clearly the cause and effect relationship of things. Two, he is compassionate. He doesn't want us who don't see how it works to blindly continue to create those problems. So he's telling us. So whatever he tells us is based on, point number one, he sees it clearly how it works. Point number two, he cares about us. That's why he's telling us. So if we understand that, then we can see how the Buddha doesn't, change his tune based on who is, based on arbitrary, based on to you, it's okay. To you, it's not okay. So here, the statement is, in general, whatever he prohibits is inveterately prohibited. Whatever he permits is inveterately permitted. Or always. Whatever he has prohibited, whatever he has proscribed, is proscribed at all times. Whatever he has prescribed for all times. This is related to those who say things like, more concrete example. Oh, in the Vinaya level, you cannot do this. But on the Vajrayana level, you can do this. When you are just at the level of Vinaya, Pratimoksha, then, you cannot drink. You cannot, have sexual relations. Oh, on the vagina level, oh, you can drink, you can have sexual relations, blah, blah, blah. Now, this is, again, not to say you cannot, it's just saying why the Buddha said, these are faults, these are problems. Or in the Vinaya level, you cannot steal. Oh, if you're stealing out of compassion, you can steal. But here Kubaranchi say, no, doesn't matter, you steal out of compassion, it's still stealing. Now, the compassion that you're generating, that will produce compassion results. But the stealing that you engage in, that will also produce result of stealing. See, this is what he's saying. Yeah, he's not saying, he's not necessarily saying stealing out of compassion, don't do ever. I feel he's not saying that. He's saying, understand that if you steal out of compassion, the stealing part is stealing, the compassion part is compassion. They are not mixed. If you kill out of compassion, the killing part is killing, the compassion part is compassion. If you kill out of protecting, the protecting part is protecting, the killing part is killing. Don't mix the two and think, oh, killing out of protection is okay. No, it's not okay. Killing is killing. Protecting is protecting. Compassion is compassion. Stealing is stealing. Lying is lying. Compassion is compassion. Like we say, oh, I didn't have the heart to tell him. That's really ugly. Okay. One side, you don't want that person to be hurt. But you lied to that person. Lying is lying. Caring about that person's feeling, well, that's virtue. Caring about that person's feeling. But the way it is done, not virtuous. You lied. Recently, something that I feel is so clear. I don't know if you all noticed, at the beginning of the pandemic, because apparently, because they were afraid that there is not enough surgical masks, right? For all the frontline people who really need it. So essentially they lied, Those in authority positions, they said, no use wearing the mask. Yeah. And in fact, I even saw things, from very reputable saying, not just no use, but in fact, don't wear. It's dangerous. So the karma of that now, you have people who say, because you have already lied, even if the motivation is like, we don't want to cause panic, blah, 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 all of that. Yeah. So now you have undermined what is true. So whatever your politics is, you can think of other situations where this principle it applies, So we should be careful and not think, oh, my motivation was good. But your method needs to also be in line with that which is true. So only as a last resort, because we're not Buddhas, obviously. So sometimes we cannot find the most perfect way of doing it, but don't so quickly say, Oh, my motivation was good. Your motivation and your method has to match, And we're saying here, Buddha's motivation and Buddha's method always matches. And because Buddha's motivation is the highest motivation, completely altruistic, therefore his method is also the highest. So the commentary, pretty long one, the Tathagata has awakened to the essence of all phenomena and perceived the knowledge of what is possible and impossible through the primordial knowing that does not deviate from the fundamental nature of the knowledge objects. He is not one who behaves like a fool, prohibiting something in the beginning and permitting it in the end, permitting something in the beginning and prohibiting it in the end, and so forth. For example, the Buddha is someone who puts beings on the perfect path through his expert instructions, as in the case of Shariputra, who gave the remains of his food to the thieving dog whose foot had been broken. Thereby the dog who died as soon as he rejoiced was born as a human being and attained arhatship through Dharma teachings. So Sobish will explain this story more. 269. Let's go ahead because this commentary is really long. We won't finish it today. And let's look at this story more. So in this story, 269, at the time of Buddha Kashyapa, there was an old arhat with an ugly voice who was chanting with a youth who had a beautiful voice. The boy said to his teacher, "Your chanting is like the barking of a dog." Yeah. Consequently, the disciple was reborn as a dog 500 times. Yeah. So this is, this is not like to threaten you, but it's to say, your actions, sometimes seemingly small, will have strong consequences. Don't be, don't underestimate. When eventually he was reborn in Shravasti, a merchant's son attacked him and broke his leg. Shariputra, so when he was reborn in Shravasti as a dog, Shariputra found the crippled dog and gave it some food. So then the dog liked Shariputra, became attached to him. The dog was finally reborn as a Brahmin's son, found Shariputra, took ordination from him, and became an arhat. So by the Shariputra giving that dog food, the dog grew fond of Shariputra. Just as in the past life, arrogantly, his voice was so good, he said to the teacher, your voice, you sound like a dog. So both are kind of seemingly innocent. Although the first one is not so innocent, it's a little bit mean to say to the teacher, your voice sounds like a dog. In this second one, Shariputra gave him food. So he got fond of Shariputra. So by associating with Shariputra, he made the karmic connection. Then he died, the puppy, the dog. Then was reborn. And then became an arhat. So that's what this story is. For this statement, the commentary for this statement. And continuing the commentary, if one eats with desire, the prohibited afternoon meal is prohibited even for the ill. But to eat with the intention of taking medicine to cure disease is permitted. So no, it doesn't sound as it is not as rigid as it sounds. So what this is saying is, Buddha said to the monks specifically, but this has implications for non-monks, is the point. Monks should not eat afternoon. So here it says, if you are ill, but nonetheless, you eat with desire, then to take another meal in the evening out of desire, even if you are ill, that will produce some negative, because it's out of desire. But if the intention of taking medicine, but if you eat with the intention of taking medicine to cure a disease, then there's no fault there. Permitted, prescribed. Meals that are desired are primordially prohibited in all respects, while eating with the intention of healing disease, of keeping the body strong, then that is fine, no matter what. But if it is, oh, I like this, 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 then there are, results for I like this, I like this, I like this, like this, So there is fault, to go all the way to Mexico City just to eat, Yeah, that's fault, Let's be clear about that. I'm talking about myself. Then, of course, it's fault, But again, I want to kind of show, we don't keep this in a very rigid way, because I'm not yet at the level, then just torturing. So it's not telling you to torture yourself. It's telling you, be clear about, what you're doing. At the very least, be clear about what you're doing. Be as clear as you can based on the teachings of the Buddha. Because if you don't have that clarity, you will never get out of the mess. Kind of earlier that point. If you don't see the faults of being addicted to a particular way of thinking, a particular way of processing things, if you don't recognize that as a fault, you will never become free of it. Recognizing it as a fault doesn't mean right now you can stop it. It's not so easy, habits. But at the very least, you have to recognize it as a fault. Then you start the process of eventually purifying it. Shariputra's teaching of the Dharma to the lady Peldenma until dawn was without transgression, since they were without afflictions. Since the mind of both possessed the Dharma, the action was teaching the Dharma, and the truth was finally perceived by the lady. Now, teaching the Dharma and leading to the truth without afflictions concerning the object, that is, women, is not prohibited at any time whatsoever. But the accumulation of karma with women, with an afflicted mind, is not permitted at any time whatsoever. So this is a story of how Shariputra was teaching the Dharma to this lady, this wealthy woman, and staying with her in the same room all the way to the morning. Then it says at a later point, the woman heard, oh, Buddhist monks are not allowed to do that. So then she has doubts, She said, oh, was Shariputra up to some no good, Then rumors start to spread, But here it said, no, Shariputra did not create any negative karma. And in fact, the woman herself also did not create any negative karma. Because at that time, throughout the night, neither of them are thinking of anything but the Dharma. Yeah? So another example, furthermore, there is the teaching that a monk should pull a woman out of the water who has been carried away by the stream, while generating the notion of pulling out a lump of earth or clay. Concerning this, taking hold of women with a desirous mind is prohibited in all respects, and taking hold of lumps of earth and clay is permitted in all respects. So this is talking to monks, right? And conversely, if this was talking to nuns, then yeah, if you view, and so lump and clay doesn't mean, like considering the woman as worth clump of clay. It means no desire is arising. So generally, according to the monks' vows, you should not touch a woman unless this is your mother or your sister or your daughter, meaning, before you became monk. So that means basically these are not objects of desire. So monks are not allowed to touch women that way. But if you're saving this person, then it doesn't matter. Because you're not. It's not a negative state of mind. It's not an attached state, a desirous state of mind, craving state of mind. You are saving this person. So there's the classic Zen story, right? Two monks came by the river. There was a woman there trying to cross, but they're not cross because the current is strong. So this one monk said, hey, just hop on my back. I will take you across. They went across. The other monk the whole time, was very disturbed by this. So they walked for a few miles. Finally, this other monk said, why did you do that? We're not allowed to do that, And he was also probably thinking, this monk, had some sexual desire, Then this monk who carried the woman said, what? I dropped her off, the minute we crossed the river. You're still carrying her until now. So of course, this talking about men and women is all, to just in our day and time, we should point out also, I suppose, this is based on the idea that mostly men are attracted to women and women are attracted to men. So in other words, like here, if this was a gay monk, no issue, carrying the woman. So the point is, whatever your mind is desirous of, if you hook into that, and then you try to treat the Vinaya rules like a lawyer in a courtroom, finding loopholes, then you don't understand what is the purpose of these vows. Moreover, concerning all transgressions, the fact that intention is the chief thing is also fully established by establishing the teaching of the Dharma beyond the prohibited limits of time, that is until dawn, as being without transgression through the special motivation for the benefit of others, that is without desire, and so forth. So here it's talking about some of the details. So there are also things like, limitation of time, a particular vow, things like that. So Sobish in his notes will elaborate on this. Yeah. So if it is truly for the benefit of others and no desire is involved, then there is no, acting in ways that create suffering. So here, Chodra brings up, many cases of showing how, although it's interpreted or understood by people as, oh, first it is not allowed, then it is allowed. This case, there are stories, not allowed, then they're allowed. But Chodra's point is that, it is not about, here, concerning all that, therefore, it is not that it is prohibited for beginners, but permitted later for experts, so to say. But rather, the inner state of mind is different. So superficially, in other words, Chodra is saying, superficially, if you look at all the various stories found in the Buddha's teachings, it might look like the Buddha is saying, oh, in this case it's okay, in that case it's not okay. For you it's okay, for you it's not okay. And superficially, it might look like, it's about how advanced you are. But it's not a question of how advanced you are. It's not a question of what kind of being you are. It's all has to do with, are we feeding the three poisons or not? Bottom line is that. Are we acting out of kleshas, or are we acting free from kleshas? That is the underlying point. If we're acting free from the kleshas, then it's permitted, then it's prescribed. If we're acting out of klesha, then it is always prohibited. It is always proscribed. And it's not determined by how advanced you are. Unless your understanding of advance is the absence and the presence of kleshas, afflictive emotions. So unless when you say advance, you mean the kleshas are not there, then you can say, yeah, for this advanced person, it's allowed. But in fact, in that case there's no allowance. It's just the person isn't even doing, isn't even creating a negativity. Because there's no kleshas involved. If there's no kleshas involved, it's not negative. But if there are kleshas involved, so we might pose like an extreme statement, right? Or a question like, is klesha always involved when, say, killing is involved? So I don't know. We have to think about that. Is it possible, to kill without kleshas involved? To use an extreme example. There, I think, I don't know. It's hard to say. It's not so clear-cut, I think. But the bottom line is, don't get confused by other standards of deciding whether something is prohibited or permitted. But always understand that Buddha's prohibitions, permissions, Buddha's proscription is all based on, is there kleshas or not? If it involves the kleshas, avoid as much as you can. If it is without kleshas, and in fact, based on the Buddha qualities, engage in as much as you can. Yeah? Any questions, comments? Mm-hmm.
I took a course of Ayurveda recently. Well, I have heard about the meals that the teachers told us that we don't have to eat when the sun has gone, and we have to go with the nature.
Uh-huh.
Uh, to cook, to sleep, to to eat, all the
Yeah.
things that we do with the nature, with the soul, with the sun or the la luna, ¿cómo se dice
Hmm.
luna?
Hmm. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Hmm.
Moon.
Hmm.
But I don't understand what is the reason. I began to practice that, and my stomach, my state of my mind
Hmm.
has changed with all habits,
Hmm.
with all that habits. But I don't understand the reason.
Why is there
Why do they recommend that?
why is there a need to understand?
My body feels the change.
Yeah,
The,
it's
the
good.
change,
So just do it.
and I sleep better. I
Yeah,
wake
yeah.
up.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Then that's good. That's it.
Okay, thank you.
You know, like, and in any case, I have speculation, but you should ask the Ayurveda. Like, why? The teachers why. And there are so many different sciences, and like that, discovering things that are real, that helpful, all of that. Oh yeah, there's so many of this. But the point is, like, if it helps, we do it. We continue. Yeah.
As you said, Buddha said, you have the experience. You
Hmm.
practice,
Yes.
and you prove if it's good for you
Yeah.
or not,
Yeah. Yeah.
and the benefits of
Yeah.
all those
Yeah.
things.
Yeah. That is the best way. But instead of like, when you're told, mm, you should do this, you should do this. I understand, as beginners, we are not sure yet, right? So it's like, well, I have no reason to do it. So give me more reasons. So then we ask, but why? So good. We'll give reason, right? But at some point we have to stop that. We have to stop that, not because as a teacher I'm lazy, I don't want to tell you why. But if you have been practicing for a while and you still feed that habit of like, but why? But why? But why? Right? Then what's going on is, like, when I tell you the answer, I can easily give it to you. But side effect is, it's not so powerful when you discover it, when you apply it.
Nice.
Then I have robbed you. I've taken it away from you, from going, wow. And worse yet is, if I just give you answers that are so convincing, but you mistake the answer as your problem has been solved, it's pointless, right?
Yes.
So at the beginning, we have to ask questions, because no choice. This is how we are. We're not convinced yet. But at a certain point, you have to make that resolve. Like, I don't need to know all the reasons. I should put it into practice. I should apply it. Then after I have applied it, from there, when I ask the questions, it will be much more useful. So sometimes, like in the old days, someone might say, oh, Lama, can you give me the empowerment of this deity or something? And the Lama might say, how about you finish 50,000 of the mantra, then come back. Some people are like, no, I'm not going to do it. And then I think it's better the Lama go, okay, well, you're not serious. you know. Well, you're not serious, you know. But if you do 50,000, you come back and the Lama said, you did 50,000? Yes, I did 50,000. Okay. Then when it's given, it's meaningful, you know.
Yes, and the teacher can ask, and how does it feel? And
Yes, exactly. And how does it feel? Right.
yes, and we can say, it's fine. I don't know why, but it's fine for me. It's
Right.
benefit.
Right.
And I invite all of you, the Sangha, to
Uh-huh.
do, because it's very
Exactly. Then you can say from your own experience, you know, well, I did it.
exactly.
It worked, you know. And I think at the same time, you know, for me, it's also the flexibility of someone saying, I did it, but no effect. Then I will say, well, your body is different. Right? And even the mind, you know. So it's not like one size fits all in terms of the specific prescription, but the underlying principle is always the same. Underlying principle for the Dharma, at least, it's always the same. How it will actually play out in your own situation depends on where you are in the process. So everybody, the only way you are going to know is when you put it into practice. Then when you put it into practice with enough experience to either confirm or to contradict, right, what is being said, when you come to the teacher, it's much more fruitful, much more effective. When you say, I've tried these 3 months, but the results that I got is like this, like this, like this, not like this, like this, like this. Then the teacher can go, okay, I understand what's the situation with you. Therefore, you have to do it this way, this way, this way, this way. But if you just intellectualize, you know, oh, I know it this way, I know this theory, this concept, this, and all you're doing is just sorting out your concepts. Not very useful.
Thank you.
Yeah. I really feel sometimes, you know, one of the strength and the weakness of Tibetan Buddhism is the strength is, you know, it has explanation for everything. The weakness is also, it has explanation for everything. Many people I see is only wearing those explanations like stickers, you know, that they stick all over their body. Then they look like a Buddha, but it's all just stickers, all just on the surface. All the explanations have been turned into stickers. So they become the deity by sticking masks of the deity, not really transforming into a deity. You can only transform into a deity if you're not just collecting stickers. And, you know, generally white in color. One white sticker, white sticker, white sticker, white sticker, white sticker, white sticker. But actually becoming Chenrezig, actually experiencing those teachings, transforming your state of being. Then, you know, it's like, I was listening to some interview, you know, someone talking about how, you know, Buddha Dharma is true because it's so scientific, you know. But this person is just keep yelling, it's scientific, it's scientific, it's scientific. I don't know this person's mind, of course, but it reminds me of like, this is like, you know, it feels like it's just replacing one dogma, one set of dogma with another set of dogma, and not applying to change the heart. So be careful not to do that, you know. Be careful not to do that. Chanchu sem churim puji ma ge ba nam ge yu chi ge ba nyam pa me pa ya gong ne gong du be war sho. Ta ta.